Welcome to another episode of This is Bet on T. Craig. Not only are we here with the phenomenal Chase Sloan, and she is going to introduce our honorary guest.
I'm super excited, Randy, because today we were here with someone I am excited about, Jacqueline Muhammad, owner of Society of Wealth, also known as my mother. So, ladies and gentlemen, Randy, boys and girls, introducing Jacqueline. How are you? Thank you so much for coming. I'm going to call you mom for the rest of the
That's fine.
mother or Lucy or whatever
Right.
it is that I call you. People know you guys as Lucy yet. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
I'm very excited to be here. So thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So, one of the reasons why we wanted to bring you on the show today is for a couple of reasons. Number one, it is that time, especially as business owners, we are, getting our paperwork or getting our businesses in order, and you are a federally licensed enrolled agent. And so I know there's a lot of wisdom that you're going to be able to bring to the conversation to the people, just in regards to just understanding numbers. And we really wanted to, Randy, that's something that we really touched on a lot this week, was just making data-driven decisions and moving from from feelings to facts, from emotions to logic, and what that looks like. So I'll let you kind of start off the conversation.
Sure.
Numbers, I remember accounting, I didn't like it, and yet that's something that you love. So
Absolutely. I do love them. I do love numbers and I love accounting. One thing I want to start with is that most people think about their data and their numbers as solely something that's required by the IRS. And so it's always this negative connotation is that I have to do this for the IRS. And you do. Any business owner is required by the IRS to keep books and records that they can come and check.
So, what would you say is the biggest, I guess you could say, issue that you see when business owners are preparing their taxes?
There is a lot of emotion when they look at the numbers. So I think sometimes they avoid the reporting because they don't want to see the numbers. But one thing I can tell you is that most businesses, most small businesses, and this number may have changed, but the first 5 years, and that's if everything's going really well, the first 5 years you can expect to see a loss. Even the IRS knows that a new business, they're not expecting them to make a profit, but they do want to be able to see how much money you did earn and your expenses. So it's really important. And that's the IRS side of it. But there's a whole nother side of it that's about running your business with the numbers.
So let's talk about that part, right? Because I think it's one thing to do stuff because you have to. And I know in a lot of times I have conversations with you, it excites you. Like the numbers, they there's this, I listen to you and you're like, oh, and then I did this. And so, like I said, it's one thing to be compliant from obligation. Right. And I believe sometimes people run from that because of fear, because whatever life is happening in the background, we see it because it's a requirement to purchase real estate, having your taxes filed, especially as a business owner, having your most 2 recent years filed. But the part that excites you and how you're able to plan for your business, like what does that look like and how did you get there?
Well, I've been an accountant in oil and gas most of my life, actually, right after I left the IRS, because of course, I was a revenue agent. And I became an enrolled agent because what I saw at the IRS was agents who were very well versed and trained in tax coming up against business owners who knew nothing. And they kind of ran over the business owner, and that caused a lot of anxiety, a lot of stress. And I guess the Treasury Department saw the same thing that was happening, and so they introduced the enrolled agent. So basically, we're trained the same, we use the same manuals, the code. The difference is that because I'm a professional, I'm required to have continuing education, and as an employee, I was not. So the Treasury Department created the enrolled agent to represent the taxpayer, so the taxpayer is not disadvantaged when talking to the agent.
And Randy, we talk about representation a lot, and part of I believe just the milestones you reach in adulthood are the decisions that you make and the partnerships that you acquire.
Mhm.
And whether we're talking about real estate and working with someone without a license, or we're talking about something as important as your business taxes and working with an enrolled agent, I mean, we see that now, right? 'Cause anybody can open up a door in real estate.
Right.
Anybody can file your taxes.
Mm-hmm. For the most part.
Right, for the most part, yeah. I guess it's kind of one of those things, is you don't know what you don't know until
Exactly.
it's too late.
Mhm.
And so I guess, what is that advice then that you're giving to the business owner, like you said, that maybe has losses, or maybe they have income, or
I have seen on Facebook, I've seen posts about, I didn't make any money this year. I didn't make a profit this year. Do I have to file my taxes? Or I only made a small amount. Do I have to file my taxes? So let's clear that up right now. If you're in business, you're required to file your taxes.
Mhm.
I'm going to tell you something personal about myself. When I came back in 2018 and restarted Society of Wealth, I made a basically close to $30,000 mistake as far as purchasing things that I didn't necessarily need, marketing and advertisement and SEO, all this
Yeah.
stuff,
Yeah.
and it's like, I'm in business, I need all this done. Well, because I reported that on my taxes, for the next 3 to 5 years, I was able to use that loss to offset the gain. So if
Right.
someone, the first year of your business is when you're probably going to spend the most money. You're going to buy business cards or whatever you had to do, Chase. You had to get the sign, you had to pay all of these expenses, right?
Mhm.
So you may not have sold, especially in real estate. It's possible that you could have gone the rest of that year without selling a house.
Yeah.
If you did not report those losses, then they're just gone. If they're reported to the IRS, so then the next year when you sell 3 to 5 houses, you've got those expenses to offset some of that profit, and it's not just lost. Does that make sense?
So, yeah, does it make sense? It makes sense. It just, I don't think I ever thought about that, right? Because, and this is really, I think, where the gaps of understanding come in, because most business owners, most entrepreneurs are doing it because it's something we're passionate about. You started a business because you're really great at this thing. You've got a knack for people, you've got a knack for creativity, and you're like, I'm going to do the things. And so we just go out and we start buying stuff, and we start tracking, but start buying stuff, yet we're not tracking stuff.
Exactly.
So how does that?
Yeah. And I understand, sometimes, getting QuickBooks, I only use QuickBooks Online. I know that can be expensive sometimes. Finding someone to do the books and finding someone who knows how to do the books accurately can be expensive, but there are ways that you can track things on paper. You either have money or you have time. So if you have money, you can pay somebody to do those things. And if you don't have money, you can do it yourself. It's just going to take time. So if you're a new business starting out, you may not be as busy as you expect to be, and you'll just have to take those, whether it's I used to use envelopes. So I would have an envelope that said February in my car, and when I would go do things with a envelope, a receipt, I would stick it in the envelope until the end of the month, and then I would do, tally up everything and then put it in another envelope that said 2024. So you have to come up with things that work for you. And it's not always about spending all the money, because I know that is not what you do. That's what I do.
Mhm.
I do the numbers, but even though you're not numbers oriented, you've got to figure out what works for you, whether it's making a note on your phone or using the envelope system. At this point, there are not a lot of cash receipts. So most of the receipts are electronic. So that helps a lot, because we know that cash receipts fade,
Right.
and the IRS has not made any concessions about faded receipts, because they know that software such as QuickBooks Online will allow you to attach the receipt. So when they know that there are options for you, it's very difficult to get them to concede, well, oh, the invoice faded and we're okay with that. It's just not
So
going
would
to
you
happen.
say there's a reason as to why entrepreneurs are not either tracking their numbers, or is there maybe it's the lack of information, or is it something that we're just not doing because we have all this cash, but yet we're not actually documenting it correctly? So when it's
Yeah.
time to do taxes,
Yeah.
Nobody knows how much you've made.
Right. I think it's the lack of information.
Mhm.
And one thing I say a lot, and I want to reiterate this, is that many business owners who have a bookkeeper give all of their documentation, their receipts, and everything they have to this bookkeeper. Well, a bookkeeper is not licensed,
Right.
and they have no continuing education responsibility. So they
Mhm.
have, they don't have the fiduciary responsibility as someone who's licensed to do your books.
Right.
So in my mind, this is my theory. The bookkeeper is saying, well, if it were wrong, the business owner would let me know. The
Mm.
business owner is thinking, well, I paid the bookkeeper. It should be right,
Yes.
right? So as a tax preparer, the
Mhm.
first thing I'm going to ask you for is your profit and loss statement and your balance sheet.
What's that?
Well, the profit and loss statement shows for this particular year how much you brought in gross income and how much your expenses were, and then it shows your net income. The balance sheet basically shows how much money you put into the business in the beginning or whenever you put money into the business, and how much debt you have, like credit card debt, SBA loans, things of this nature.
So when you're saying that, okay, so number one, profit and loss and balance statement, they're not the same thing.
They're not the same thing.
So a balance statement is I started my business with $2,000.
This is what I'm left with, or this is what I've
This
spent,
is
or
what's in. This is what I have in the. This is what I have invested in the business.
Okay.
And if next month you can't pay your rent and you have to go to your personal savings account and you put $400 with the rent that you had, then the next month it's going to show $2,400 is what I have invested.
Mhm.
And the balance sheet isn't as I won't say it's not as important, but it doesn't change as much for small business owners. We're really more concerned about the profit and loss, but I want to get back to that because I want to get through this whole thing about the bookkeeper not
Versus,
being
yeah, not
not
being,
being licensed, but there are good bookkeepers. I
but
mean,
not
a
doing the
lot of
continuing
bookkeepers,
education.
well, and a lot of them do it on their own. They're
Right.
just not required. There are bookkeeping schools.
Mhm.
A lot of people go to bookkeeping schools, so I'm definitely not knocking bookkeepers.
Right.
I've been a bookkeeper all of my life, basically. I just
Mhm.
had a different title.
Right.
But so I'd mentioned that the bookkeeper is thinking if it were wrong, the owner would let me know.
Mhm.
The owner is thinking I'm paying the bookkeeper should be right. As a tax preparer, the first thing I'm going to ask you for is your balance sheet and your profit and loss. You give it over to me because you got it from the bookkeeper, so you
Right.
passed it on to me. And as a professional, I am not required to audit the information that you give to me.
Ah.
So if it's something that's standing out, it looks funny, then I'm
Mhm.
required to ask you about it and document your answer.
What
But
would that look like? Something that looks funny.
let's say that you had let's say that
It's almost like the miscellaneous expenses, like
that
you
could
don't
be
know.
it, but something
Yeah.
even more egregious, like maybe you are, because I'm trying to think of a
Spending
profession
three
that
thousand
would.
dollars at McDonald's.
That's
Exactly,
crazy.
exactly.
That's
Right.
crazy.
That's a good one. So, and the highest meal receipt you have is $7.95.
Mhm.
So, if I see a lot of those, I would
Mhm.
ask. Or if you have, for example, you're a bookkeeper, but you have a vehicle. You have vehicle expense. You've bought
Mhm.
a. I would think that a bookkeeper would need to have a business vehicle that is purchased by the business.
Right.
But I would ask, and maybe the bookkeeper would say, "Well, I travel all over the state of Texas,
Mhm.
doing books." And so I would just have to document that.
That makes sense.
But my point is that that's not an audit.
Mhm.
An audit is looking at the receipts and determining if these are actual, if you have the actual receipts. So back on this journey, you've given me these reports that who knows is right. I've looked at the reports. I don't see anything that, raises a red flag for me.
Right.
And then I prepare your tax return, and then you sign it under penalties of perjury.
Mm.
And that's the part that people don't get, right? Nobody's responsible for this tax return except you.
Mhm.
You signed it.
Right.
I didn't sign it as the tax preparer. Well, I do sign it, but basically you're signing under penalties of perjury, and the bookkeeper is definitely not involved in this
I
thing.
see what you're saying. So it's like you have to take responsibility for not
Yes.
only your numbers, but making sure
Mm-hmm.
that this is why you gotta hold yourself accountable.
Exactly.
Okay,
Exactly.
that makes sense.
And it's better to do it monthly because you may forget, it's
Absolutely.
really difficult to go back.
Now, is that only within QuickBooks, or is that actually within the context of even if you don't have QuickBooks, but you keep a
Absolutely.
documentation of
Right.
your accounts, or you know how
hmm
much was coming in?
Right.
You know,
However you're going to do it, whether you know Excel and you're creating a Excel spreadsheet,
right.
or you're putting it on your phone, or they've got so many apps that you can use.
Got it.
You just need to know basically what's going on. And even if you have a bookkeeper and you're not keeping up with it every day,
Mm-hmm.
you should review those reports before you give it to the tax preparer, and then you should question it,
Right.
right?
That makes sense.
So
hmm
what are some questions then that, because what is what's kind of standing out is that clarity is power.
hmm
One, for you as a business owner,
hmm
and then two, so that way if you are questioned, you can explain it. So if it
Exactly.
comes back and you sign this thing for penalty of, like you said,
hmm
no, I travel all around the
hmm
state doing people's books. That's
hmm
why I have a car for this thing. Yet what are some questions then that you should be asking a tax professional, especially because sometimes I think we get a lot of our learning from social media and Facebook groups and a lot of people that don't have valid experience
Or
to be giving
evidence.
advice.
Yeah, or
Yeah.
And
evidence. Yeah.
yet we're looking in these groups and they're like, you can deduct everything. You can deduct your
Mm-hmm.
wardrobe and your socks in the car
Right.
and the McDonald's meals. And they're just like,
Right.
find all of these
hmm
deductions, but they're not coming from actual
Right.
licensed
Credible sources.
hmm And
professionals.
the tax preparer, that's one of those things that I would ask you about. If I saw a bunch of uniforms and I basically know what you do, I would ask you about that, and I would let you know that those things are not deductible. Um, with my company, and because I work with a lot of small businesses, I meet with them and I explain every number that is on the tax return because I know you're signing it under penalties of perjury. And once e-file your tax return or print it and give it to you, I'm pretty much done,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I need you to understand every number that is on
So,
that
What is
return.
penalties of perjury?
That means that that's a federal, you
crime.
can go to jail.
If your numbers, so
It
it's
means you can go to jail. That's what Lucy said.
so it's based off of what the numbers actually look like, or is it based off of how much money hits your account?
is what the
The penalties of purgatory, or like,
Oh no, I don't know about
I
that.
said
I mean,
purgatory,
that's just so penalty. You've signed that on many different
of
things. It's just a
course.
lot of
You just don't
times
know.
people don't realize they signed the tax return on that. And
Got it.
so I'm not a lawyer. I can't really explain that to you,
Understood.
but it
Yeah.
is serious.
Understood. It sounds
Yeah.
serious.
So if you were, and I do want to say this up front. I applaud anybody, every person
That
who
decides
has the guts and the desire and
determination.
determination to go into business. I applaud you, but you know what you can do, and the accounting side of it is something totally different. So
Right.
I just want my goal when working with small businesses is to keep them out of trouble because I'm assuming that everyone that comes to me is going to succeed.
Mhm.
And I
Love it.
don't want
Yeah.
your success to be halted because now you have IRS issues.
Got it.
So that's my goal. I believe in all of my clients. I believe that they have what it takes to be successful. But sometimes, running a business is like going up a ladder. It's one step at a time. And sometimes you come down the ladder and you
Hmm.
have to keep going and you have to figure out. And many of us have to figure it out every day.
Right.
So you asked me a question earlier about how I look at my books, and I wanted to get into that. In general, and first of all, this is not legal advice and it is
Hmm.
not tax advice because I'm
Understood.
I'm speaking in generalities and we'll see how it goes. But in general, if you go to Macy's and you buy a pair of shoes, you're probably paying 100% of what they pay for. Let's say that the shoes are $100, they probably paid $50,
Right.
right?
So they can see.
So
Yeah.
the other 50 was used to advertise and get commercials and turn the lights on. You should look at your books in the same way.
Mhm.
So if you made, if let's say that you want to, the way I look at my books is that let's say that I've got $100,000 as gross income. I'm going to skip all the way down to see that my net is
What's my
50,000.
net? Yeah.
If
So
my net is not 50, then I need to go through all those lines and see where am I losing money. And this is just very general because, like I said in the beginning, you're going to have more expenses than you possibly have in income. So
right.
you can't, I can do that because I've been in business for a while. I can, I can try to keep my expenses at 50% of my income. Some businesses are just totally different. You know, like a cleaning service, it might be 60/40. I don't know what realtors are, but whatever that number is for you, you use your books to see if you're hitting that number. And if you're not, you may need to um, decrease your expenses.
Hmm.
I did this exercise. I always do this exercise during the Christmas break. And I actually found about $1,500 in software that I won't have next year because I went through and I did this analysis and I wanted to cut. Now, as you always say, Chase, you can cut too deep. So
Hmm.
you need to make sure that you keep the things that you absolutely need. You're not just trying to cut just to say you cut it down, but
It's
you want to
like,
keep.
and I can relate that because Randy, we talk about data driven just when we're talking about the business and we're looking at our results and our reports. And we had some software that we were using, and it was a monthly expense. And we looked at the data from, the numbers of appointments that we were able to set, number of actual people contacts and stuff like that we were able to make. And I remember asking you, Randy, like, do you believe this is an expense we should continue
Mm-hmm.
keeping based off of the data?
Right.
And that's why really just emphasizing, a data driven life and moving from feelings to emotion is that,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I might feel like I need these things. I need
Mm-hmm.
this software. I need this SEO. I need this website. I need
Mm-hmm.
this stuff. And yet, if you're not tracking it, so like they say,
Yep.
you must inspect what you expect.
Mm-hmm.
If you have all these, because they're gonna nickel and dime you, right? We
Exactly.
live in a subscription based world.
Yes.
They're banking on you to not
Forget
check.
to
Mm-hmm.
forget and not actually
Absolutely.
pay whatever it is
Absolutely.
that you subscribe to. I think it also goes back to what you mentioned briefly was that are you paying attention to the gross or are you paying attention to the net?
Mm-hmm.
Because we talk about even certain artists, they talk about
Mm-hmm.
if we talk about Nipsey Hussle
Mm-hmm.
exclusively, he was like, I don't why are we talking about gross? What's the
Mm-hmm.
net? Talk to
Exactly.
me about the
That's
net.
the number.
You know, and I
That's the
think that
number.
if us as business owners thought about that more, that
Mm-hmm.
hey, after all your expenses or after paying out employees or after paying for the product that you're selling, what's the net?
Exactly.
You know, and I think if we
Yep.
just changed the conversation and
Mm-hmm.
conceptualized it around what is the actual number that you're
Exactly.
gonna get, I
Mm-hmm.
think then we'd be so much further.
Right. And after you've gone through, let's say that your net, you made $100,000 and your net was 13,000. So there's a problem there, right?
You got too
So
many
you're gonna
expenses.
go.
Because you've spent too much. If you
Uh,
made a hundred
Oh, the
thousand dollars
product
and
or
your
the
net is $13,000, it's
you've
a problem because.
you've spent too much,
Hmm.
but if you go through all those expenses and you determine that every single one of them is important, then you need to make more money. So you need to go out and you need to sell
something.
more.
Yeah, you gotta do something.
You got to do something to offset
You
that.
gotta do something.
You
I
got to do
think
something. And this is, and like I said,
right,
this is just textbook. This
right,
this
right.
this probably rarely happens in real life, but it's a guide to kind of get you where you're trying to go.
Hmm.
And with that, if I can talk about estimated taxes.
Yeah, please
Yeah,
do.
of course.
Okay.
That's
We
the
got business on. Like, the goal of the
even, but I
conversation
think it
is
also
to have the conversations that people are not having with us, right? And to bridge that gap. So, what do you
Okay.
want to let us know about
Okay.
estimated
Let me
taxes?
see. What were you gonna say?
But I also think it matters too, though, because even if we're talking about someone being, say, an employee or someone being a business owner, I think it's important that you still think about the net, though,
Hmm.
because even, you could be getting paid salary, but not realize that it's like how much is this specific state taking taxes.
Hmm.
So I think it's always important to actually have that
It is.
conversation.
It's
Yeah,
very important.
yeah. So
So
estimated
So, with
taxes.
estimated
estimated
taxes.
taxes, what do you mean there?
Okay. So Schedule C, sole proprietors,
Yes.
LLC, single owner LLCs. We're not talking about S corps or C corps or partnerships or nonprofits. We're just talking about 1040 with a Schedule C. You're required to make estimated taxes throughout the year. And I always tell people who uh, get really upset about the estimated taxes is that go take a look at your last W 2, because most people have worked a W 2. Go take a look at your last W 2 and you'll see that you've got FICA and Medicare and Social Security, right?
Right.
It comes out before you even get your check. Once they run payroll, it goes to Social Security or to the
Mm-hmm.
government, and then you get the net, right? And then
Mhm.
everybody's complaining about the net and the government's taking too much out of your check. As a business owner, you are afforded the luxury of paying once a quarter and then telling them what you owe, right?
Based off the numbers or based off of.
Whether you could base it off whatever you want to base it off of. They're not looking into it right now.
Got
But
it.
taxes is pay as you go.
So I'm able to mitigate risk potentially or any, complications if I just said, hey, I'm approximately making
Yeah, you
this
should
amount.
know, right? But if you
Right.
don't, you need to make it because I mean there's penalties, but they're not that big. But the problem is the big hit in April, right?
Right.
So what I do is every month, like I'll reconcile my bank account sometime this week, and then I will calculate how much my estimated taxes are for January,
Mm.
and I would take that money and put it into a separate bank account.
Right.
I'll do that for January, February, March, and then in March, so if the first estimated payment is due April 15th, I'm not sure. The money's already there because I've already
Mm-hmm.
put it aside.
Mhm.
Now, when I put it aside, it's kind of painful. I may have to go lie down, whatever. But when it's due, the money is already there. And that takes
Right.
discipline,
It
right?
definitely
That
does.
takes discipline. Um, so, those are just some of the things that, and we may not like it. Back when I was a young entrepreneur, we had this thing. Well, actually, I was working and it was called Steal Away, right?
Mhm.
And what steal away meant was that you're just doing your thing and you're staying under the radar and you're not causing any problems until you're ready to do it, whether you're leaving the country or whatever it is you want to do. But many today, they don't steal away. They've already announced it on Facebook. I'm doing these things. I'm not paying my taxes, and and it's just out there.
Well,
So,
I mean, we laugh, and yet, like, if we
This
even
is
just
true. It's
look
very
back to
true.
recent
mhm,
Even
things
conversations
and
that we have with other
what we
business
see
owners.
on the
Yeah.
internet, and whether it's all of the stimuluses that came out during the pandemic, and all the
yes,
government loans and the PPP, a lot of the reason why these agents were able to build their cases was because of the
absolutely.
announcing and the
Hmm.
flanting and the
You
big
made yourself a
lifestyles and this
target.
stuff, and it becomes cited.
Yeah.
They cite you hear about all of these high profile cases that are now in the court system, and they're using the stuff that you shared on social media as their evidence against you.
Right.
Eh,
That's a good point, and that's a segue into this uh, beneficial owners report, the BOI report that has
yeah.
everybody is.
You ain't
Well,
lying.
I
What is that?
I don't know. I don't have any factual information, but this is how I feel it happened because I know for years since COVID, I've heard people say, "Get this LLC and let it own this LLC, and then get a S corp," and all of these different layers. So the beneficial owner is the person who gets the money. That's
Right.
BOI, beneficial owner information. Um, but it's very difficult to find because there's so many layers of of LLCs and S corps all entangled, right? And I didn't know anything about it. I saw it on social media.
Mhm.
Well, they're watching because now they're requiring that you report who is the beneficial owner, and it's if you've already had the LLC or the S corp in 20 before January of 2024, you have a year to report, and everybody's thinking. Why would they give us a year? It's easy. Just go put it out there. But they're thinking about the people who have so many layers. So imagine if
Mm.
your S corp, your LLC owned my LLC, and my LLC owned your S corp, right?
Right.
And so now you're trying to report, and Randy like, I'm not giving you my information.
Got it.
So now you've got a problem.
Because okay, so I actually, ironically, this time last year had a conversation in January of 2023 where I was listening to he was a lawyer speaking, and he was mentioning he was like, okay, if you look at say Donald Trump, for example, say go and look to sue Donald Trump in order to find or touch whatever he has going on,
Yeah,
it's it's it's
yeah.
it's layered.
Hmm.
You
It's
know
very, it's layered.
it's
Hmm.
layered. So and then it's ironic how it all comes full circle. People get mad like how you go bankrupt, he's still a billionaire. It's like, well, why you what you paying attention to? And so
Yeah.
it's like, how do we kind of
Yeah.
I don't want to say play the game the way it's meant to be played, or just is it does it go back to a lack of information or a lack of
It's
implementation, or
absolutely
you
a lack
know?
of information because, I've had this conversation about, the former president before and why people think he gets away with everything at the IRS. Maybe he doesn't, maybe he doesn't. But what I do know, because I looked it up, is that he pays his accountants a $250,000 a
It's very,
month.
very ooh.
So he probably has one person on every single
Yes,
thing because the code is the code. It's how you use the code to your
it's
benefit.
very
The
powerful.
code, the same code that he's using is the same code that you're using,
Yes,
but
he
I
just
don't.
knows.
Well,
He has
it goes back to like investing in the professional. So if you're saying, okay, yeah,
Wow.
he's able to do these things, and also he's paying $250,000 a month so somebody can understand this at a very high level. And so
hmm
it's like if you do decide to operate in that way, the two things cannot exist. You cannot say, I'm going to do what he did and not follow all the steps. As my sister Alyssa will say, you can't pick and choose the steps. When you're making a
exactly.
cake, you can't say, I agree with the flour, but not the eggs. You
Exactly.
know what I'm saying? Like
Right.
it's not going to turn out the
Exactly.
same. And so
Exactly.
a lot of times it's like we want the benefits of
hmm
the loopholes of taxes, but we don't want to pay the
hmm
professionals to
Exactly.
ensure that we don't get caught up. So then we
hmm
divert to a
hmm
Facebook group or
Right.
somebody that
But
One of the
they licensed.
I think we get so caught up in it's like not say what does it look like, or it's so easy because they did it, but it's like
hmm
you don't know how long they've been doing it for,
exactly.
right? So it's like
Exactly.
when people talk about like there's the it was like say for example the Haitian CEO he mentioned, oh he's like paying taxes is ghetto,
hmm
but it was like in saying that though he had a CPA in his corner
hmm
telling do this or work on
hmm
this, avoid, but
hmm
he's seeking wise counsel as to
Absolutely.
why he's able to be like,
Absolutely. One of the
you know,
first things I learned when I was working for the Internal Revenue Service was tax um, avoidance is legal, tax evasion is illegal.
mhm,
There's a difference. And so
What does that mean?
avoidance mean that you're following the rules and you found a rule in the code or somebody knew
yeah,
about it and they say, hey, don't sell your stock this year, wait until next year and you'll be
mhm,
older or you'll have less tax consequences or you will have a long-term capital gain. Whatever it is, it's information so that you're paying less.
Hmm.
That's you're avoiding tax. Evasion is that
You're
you're
cheating.
cheating on your
It's
taxes.
interesting because I read this book called Tax Free Wealth by Tom Wheeler. And one of the things that we'll often see, like Amazon doesn't pay taxes, right? Well, in that book, he said the way that you avoid taxes is to provide housing or provide jobs,
Mm.
right? So a lot of times, the reason why investors continue to invest is because they are offsetting the income
Yes.
that they have. This is why you say at some point, maybe for that first home, real estate is emotional. It's a I don't know what I feel like. I just want to live in a pretty, pretty place. And that's what you're pursuing. And then as you start making money, as you start building these businesses, it's like, I need to buy real estate to offset these taxes that
Yeah.
I'm going to owe.
hmm
And I know that if I provide housing, reinvestment properties, rental properties, then I'm going to be able to not only write off
hmm
whatever maintenance goes in the
hmm
house, I'm going to be able to write off. You
hmm
can talk about that part. I am not a tax professional. I just help you find the investment properties. This person helps you with the write-offs.
Right.
And yet that kind of goes into the tax planning. I think like we
hmm
talk about it a lot just in our conversations. Yet that's how you get data driven decisions.
Exactly.
Yeah, definitely.
Exactly.
and
Exactly.
I think it's like instead of focusing on maybe how it feels, as you stated
hmm
about people get so caught up in what the numbers look like, it's
hmm
like make the informed decision based off of what your circumstances are requiring you to do,
hmm
because you get so caught up in what it feels
Exactly.
like and then you're not making
hmm
wise decisions because
Right.
now you're actually coming from a place of scarcity instead of a place
Exactly.
of abundance.
And that happens also when I'll see people on social media and they were saying, when should I quit my job? Well, nobody can tell you when to quit your job. But if you had the numbers,
Right.
you could
Mm,
see that, man, my income is increasing 10% every year, my
mm,
net,
right.
and pretty soon it's going to be able to replace my salary.
Right.
Now, an entrepreneur is generally working around the clock anyway. So if you're working, 8-hour job in the morning, you got to come home, you got to hustle with your business. That may be what you have to do. No one can tell you that, but it's not something that you're going to quit your job and then you're going to sit at home and run your business and not put any work in it, not
Right.
put any sweat equity in it.
Hmm.
So I think there is a lot of really bad information on social media, and I cringe every time I see it.
So how do you bounce back, right? So this is very proactive conversation, and hopefully you watching this video the day before you get ready to start your business and you know all the things. And also we know that there are two types of people, right? There are people that are like, I should have seen this 10 years ago. And now there's just this mess. And we talk about fear, which could also be associated with shame, that I don't even know how to ask for help. I didn't do it. I didn't do the BOI report. I don't have no receipts. I don't have an envelope. I don't have QuickBooks. I don't have a bookkeeper. I don't have a tax person. And now I also don't have no money. So how do we get out of
Well,
the mess? You said you also do IRS representation. So, hey, what do I do? My life's a mess and these
yeah.
people sending me letters.
Well, at some point,
I'm just trying to be
No, it's
relatable.
real. It's real.
yeah, it is
It's
real. And at some point, you may be, I hate to say it, but you're going to have to do it yourself because IRS representation isn't cheap. The IRS generally has about 2 years to make a decision. So if I take you on as a client and you pay me up front, that means that I'm still indebted to you maybe for 2 years. So it's not cheap. So at some point, you've got to determine, am I really an entrepreneur? Is it
Mm.
time for me to just go back to work and do my thing? I'm better at work. I'm really good at it. The money comes in. I can take care of my family. But if you're a true entrepreneur, that's not going to work for you. So you're going to have to figure out how to get you out of it because no other individual is going to be able to absorb your problems without any money and,
Most
and
definitely.
get you out of, the first thing you want to do is you want to talk to a professional. As a tax professional, I am just licensed in tax. I am not a lawyer. I can't give you legal advice. I can't do any of that.
Mm-hmm.
I can just work with your taxes. And I try to create a safe space for the people who call me who may not be my clients. I try to give them the facts, and then they have to make the decision on how they're going to figure it out. Whether they have someone they can borrow the money from and they can get it going, but no one person is going to be financially responsible for getting you back on your feet.
Mm-hmm.
And I like what you said there. It's like that you either take responsibility for what it is you have going on, or you seek wise counsel.
Yeah.
Like it, because the thing is that even when I look to study certain entrepreneurs, a constant reoccurring theme is that they paid for information.
Mm-hmm.
They paid for
Absolutely.
information
Absolutely.
without fail. They
Mm-hmm.
said, I don't know. So
Yeah.
therefore, I'm going to look to speed up my ignorance debt, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to go pay for
Absolutely.
information.
And I don't want to leave the impression that if you are struggling or if you are in a bad situation that you are not normal because most of us have gone through it. But if you're a true entrepreneur, no matter how many times somebody tells you to go back to work,
You're gonna figure it out. Say no, that's not the route.
yeah, or
That's
you
That
may
ain't
go
it.
it's not it.
you may
Try
go
again.
back to work for a few months, get yourself on your feet, try it again. Maybe you'll try to do them both. But I truly applaud entrepreneurs because I am one, and
Hmm.
I have been doing this thing for a long time. I you know get in trouble, go back to work, figure it out,
Come back.
come back. I did that often. A friend once told me that when you see those signs on those restaurants and it says uh, since 1847, or they may not have been in business since 1847, but that was when they were founded,
That's when they
right?
established
That
it.
was when they established it.
Hmm.
So that's why when you ask me how long, it's been a long time.
It's been a long
I
time.
established
But
it
I feel that.
a
I
long
feel
time
that. I
ago.
I
feel that.
remember when you told me that, and it's something that I've held to. It's something that I share with people that, when you're established, you're established. And it doesn't mean, T. Craig was established in 2010. It doesn't mean that all 14 years have been up.
Mm-hmm.
Randy and I use this little emoji, like
Mm-hmm.
the little
Chart. Oh
graph
yeah,
emoji,
statistics.
right?
Yeah,
That
stats.
graph emoji is real. Sometimes it's here, then and
Mm-hmm.
yet it's encouraging to me because you have to keep moving forward. You have to keep taking those steps.
If it's in your blood, if it's in your heart, you're gonna have to keep. I also have that chart. Remember, I told you about my estimated taxes that I do monthly. They're only due quarterly, but I do them monthly. And remember, I told you about the $30,000 mistake that I
Mm-hmm.
made. So it's been eating away my profit. So I haven't had to pay taxes or whatever.
Right.
But I'll look at it and say, oh, you know, um,
It's getting better. Or
it's getting
it's
better.
getting
I can
better.
see that I'm still in the red
Yeah.
because I started off $30,000 in the hole,
But
but I'm less in the red.
I think it's something that,
I'm not still in the red, but I'm saying
no, no, I was. Yeah. I feel that like I think when people ask, "Oh man, how you doing?" I'm like, "Bro, I just got to keep shooting.
yeah.
I just got to keep
Yeah.
shooting." Because the thing is that when it pops and when
Mhm.
it clicks, it's like nobody can say you got
Yeah.
lucky or you did what was
Right.
necessary for you to get to where you were at. So
Hmm.
therefore, I'm going to
Yeah.
reap what it is I've sown. I put in
Right.
the work.
Yeah. People really believe in overnight success, and it
That's
does. It's just that when they noticed you, it seemed like it was just
hmm
yesterday when Chase was getting her real estate license, and now look at us. You
She'll be
know,
like, Joker, I have been talking to y'all 14 years.
right?
And,
Right.
so one of the things that made me think about, what you mentioned about the 30,000 mistake is gamifying your numbers. And Randy, I shared with you a network tracker and something that helped me because if I'm just honest, numbers, real estate numbers are my thing. Tax numbers are not.
That's a
And
choice.
talk. That's real. No, that's
that's
real.
a
It's
choice.
a choice.
You
You
see
out
what
here
happens when you
picking and
bring your mama on
choosing.
the social
You
media.
you out here picking and choosing what you like. Yeah,
Yeah, but it is
it's
a
true.
choice, right?
Yeah.
Because you get stronger in the things that you choose to focus on. What you
Right.
focus on expands. And so when I say that, gamifying this network tracker, it because it is a choice, I was like, okay, this isn't something I do well. So how can I make it less annoying for me? And setting this habit that, okay, on the 14th, I'm just gonna put, it's an Excel sheet. I just put the numbers in it. It does whatever the Excel sheet does. Yet what I love about it and what would get me excited is that it shows your net worth, right? So before I purchased my home, I was in the red. And then I purchased a home and I'm a little less in the red. And then I'm able to see, and then I started paying down these credit cards and I'm a little less in the red. And
Exactly.
then the market appreciates. And so I'm tracking all of these pinpoints, these metric points. So I think the lesson is, if you're not good at it, if it's not your thing, some people wake up in the morning and like numbers. If you're like me, there's
Well,
no.
there's only 10 of them.
Ooh, 10, there's only 10 numbers. It's only 10 numbers. I like that. I think it really goes back to what does
You're
that
making
mean?
it more
Wait, wait,
complicated
wait,
than
wait,
it
wait,
really
wait,
is. It's
wait,
only
wait.
10 numbers.
What does
There's
that
only
mean?
10.
What do you mean
There's
there's only
only
10
10.
numbers? There's only 10 numbers. I thought I knew what it meant, but I lost. What does that mean? It's only 10
One,
numbers.
two, 1 through 10, repeated over and
I
over and
thought we
over
was
again.
talking about like a social security and that's only 9 numbers. I'm sure. Anyways, so I feel like, and talking about gamifying, right? Like if you were to track your numbers every single day, what would that then do for you over 30 days?
Mhm.
Because not only would it look to be a habit,
Exactly.
not only would it be a habit,
Exactly.
but now you're consciously like
Yeah. And
breaking off
some
limiting
days it's
beliefs.
going to hurt. I'm
That's
serious when I tell
yeah,
you that when I
yeah,
do my estimated taxes, I have to go lie down. That is not a joke,
yeah.
right? But after 3 months and the money is already in there, and I'm like, I could file my estimated taxes on the second because it's
Got it. Because you know your numbers,
I already put the money aside.
but you
Yeah.
know your
I know my
numbers.
numbers and I already put the numbers aside. But it's
Man,
it's sometimes painful and then it gets less painful and then it gets less painful. And then when it's less painful, you're more motivated to keep going. And this is how you build your business.
It's kind of like, keep having a budget, having a savings, and having that discipline is hard until an emergency happens. And then you have that savings and you have those things,
Exactly.
right? So a
Hmm.
blown out tire, that's a inconvenience. Yeah. If you
if you
have
got it,
money in the
if you
savings
got it.
to just go
Hmm.
discount tire and they're like, you need to replace them all. And you're like, all right.
It's painful,
It's
Today,
but you can
painful
do it.
because I don't want to do that, yet it's less painful than
Hmm.
I can't do that right now. So replace what I brought. in here and
Replace,
leave me alone about the rest of them tires. I ain't ask you about that. This is what I asked you to fix, right? And I think that just goes back to delayed gratification.
Yeah.
Right.
Because I've had great seasons and I've had not great seasons. I've had seasons where tax bills due and
I got
oh
it.
my gosh. And I
yeah.
remember I remember how I walked that check into the IRS office. Cause I was
Yeah.
like, nah, baby, I got my tax money. Like you gonna stamp this check, right? But I was proud because I also remember the years when I did not have it. And I remember the lack of discipline and the pain that caused.
Very
So
true.
you're going to experience pain either way. Randy, you talk about pain a
Mhm.
lot of times. You're going to experience the pain
Of
of
deciding or
not
yeah.
doing it, or you're going to have the pain of sacrificing and then being able to do it. But it hurts either way.
Yeah.
You know, and the thing is that when it goes back to talking about what's the net, like if we take honestly understanding your numbers and then we talk about gamifying it in terms of how you playing Monopoly, right? In real estate. How I said I started with a single family or I started with a
Mhm.
condo and
Mhm.
then I just like, you know what?
Mhm.
I want to go get a shopping center.
Mhm.
That's a game. It's
Mhm.
just
Mhm.
what type of game do you want to play?
So this week we had I know we got you switching back and forth. This week we had a conversation with a mentor of ours and he was just talking about how he built his wealth and he started, I guess maybe I don't know how many years ago, and he said that his first condo was $20,000, $30,000, right? He's like, I just bought the condo that nobody wanted to buy, and then he sold that.
Just
Then
kept
he
it.
bought something else, and then he did 1031 exchange, and he did that, and then he used that to buy land, to buy strips, and then now he's completely passive. His real estate investments fund his perfect life. He has the business. It's
In
just for
addition
kicks
to
and kicks and giggles at this point. Like he's completely.
yeah.
One of the things that he said that stood out to me, he said, people do not replace you in the business. Assets replace you in the business. Because if you're relying on people, you're going to constantly be, are they doing this right? Are they showing up? Are they getting the sales? He's like, yet his way out was that he had built this portfolio of producing real estate to where
Even if he
I'm
stopped working
a
today.
eat. Y'all
Right.
need to eat.
Right. So even if he stopped working
Mhm.
today, he had the money. Like it
Mhm.
just was passively always making the money.
Yeah.
And I think when I talk to other business owners and I look at whatever their business plan may be and I say, okay, how are you going to go out and get customers? Because I mean, I think any business for the most part, as
Mhm.
long as you know how to get customers, you can make money.
Mhm.
Like it's
Mhm.
so I think about it and I'm like, okay, what strategies are they utilizing and how are they going to go get that customer? Because say they spend $10 for ads and you're just thinking, well, I spent $10, but it's like that doesn't mean that you're going
Right.
to net 100 even if that's what the client pays you. Like
Right.
that's not what that means, you
Right.
know. So
A lot of people think that,
yeah.
they really think. I've seen on social media where somebody said, I don't know what to do. I've been in business for 6 months and I've only had 4 sales. And I'm like, give yourself a hand.
Mhm.
4 better than 0.
Yeah, you got 4 sales, but it's not time to quit.
Yeah.
But sometimes, we're just, and I get it.
Perspective.
I get it. Many of us don't have the trust fund. Many of us don't have the relatives to go and
Hmm.
borrow money from us. Many of us can't get a loan, can't get an SBA loan. So I get it.
Hmm.
But we still have to figure it out.
Right.
We have to figure it out. And the answer is there. You
Hmm.
just have to, search, go deep, and figure it out. Because in our entire history, we haven't had it. And there are many
That are still done
that
it.
have made it
Right.
and been successful. And it's about focus too.
Something that you shared with me is like nobody's unique in their problems. Like everybody goes through it. It's not a black thing or a white thing. It's just how do you choose to you focus on the plan or you focus on the problem. Um, I what?
Can I because I remember when I told you, can I
Yeah.
tell that story?
Yeah, go ahead.
So in my building, where my office is located, last month we had water falling from the ceiling,
Hmm.
and then this the same month, and then the podcast room blew up,
Whoa.
so we had a fire.
Whoa.
Um,
That's crazy.
then the owner had at least 5 different companies come out, and nobody could fix it, but they all charged him. So he's very wealthy, and he just paid it. But what I'm saying is that I watched him go through that, and he wasn't blaming, he didn't, his attitude didn't change, and I'm sure it's because he had the money, but still, you don't want to give away your money. He's client tenants were complaining. Then the internet went out. It was this is all in the same month. Internet was going out. So they called somebody in to fix the internet, and this is in the middle of the day, he just comes and says there's too many things plugged in. He starts unplugging everything, shuts everybody down. So I watched him and I said, those are some huge problems to have, all happening in 1 month. And because of all the problems, he gave everyone 50% off their rent this month. So
That's
look
real.
at how much money he spent trying to keep that building going.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's on a larger scale, but we run into the same issues, and we cry and we scream and we kick and we blame everybody, and we don't want to do it anymore, and it's just one of those things that you have to get through.
Yeah, everything goes through. And I think when what I'm learning is that when you're a business owner, you can relate to business owner type things. And when you lack that, you see reasons to complain, or customers or might complain, right? I think sometimes business owner to business owner, we can allow for a little bit more grace, because you're like,
Yeah,
what do
you
you mean
understand.
your podcast room blew? What do you mean this room blew up? What are you talking about? If our producer, that I would totally give him grace if something like that happened. And yet professionalism, or not even professionalism, but just doing things differently, is taking extreme ownership, right? Something we believe in is like, okay, what needs to happen so I can fix the problem, and then what needs to happen so that way I can keep my client, right? What is the thanks for being patient with me that I can afford to give my client? He wouldn't have been able to give 50% off if he didn't know his numbers. Or maybe he did give or if he did give 50% off,
He's
and then
gonna get it
now
back. He's gonna get it back another way.
and now it's like, oh my gosh, why did you give that money away? You didn't have that money to begin with, and now you have
Paying either way.
You're paying it either way. So switching gears a little bit, because this is a real estate show, I'm curious on how have you allowed number-driven, data-driven decisions to fund and move your life forward. So we were like talk about. I remember Randy once we wanted to talk about interest rates. They come up a lot. Do you remember when you bought your first home?
I do, and I definitely didn't have it together number wise. It was just emotional decision, something we wanted to do, and we purchased the house. I think at the time, the interest rate. This was back in '82. The interest rate was like 18%, but we didn't.
Wait.
I think it was 18%.
Wait.
This is what I'm saying.
I just want to.
This is what I'm saying.
She said there are only 10 numbers.
18%.
That's a 1 in 8.
That's a
18%.
18%.
But okay, so
Perspective.
can you just take us, because
It's so
we were
all
on
I
a
can
call,
tell
we were on
you.
a call today, and one of the conversations that came up was that the reason why we believe rates are high is because of whatever you've been exposed to. So if you've only seen rates at 4%, then naturally 6 is high. And then you're saying that when you bought your home, it was 18. So like, was that like, you weren't scared?
I don't even remember thinking about it. We knew that we could afford the monthly note. We knew we weren't going to be there that long. It was a duplex that we didn't want, but that's the only thing we could get approved for. So we got the duplex. We knew what the monthly mortgage was going to be, and that was it. And we stayed in it exactly a year, which is what the plan was. And then by that time, the interest rate had fallen, and we were able to get into something decent. I don't remember what it was. Like I said, this was many years ago, so don't quote me on any of this. But my point is that we were looking at what was we had applied for beautiful homes that we wanted, and we couldn't get them. And so the only thing that we could fall into was this duplex. Hated it, hated duplexes, didn't want to live there, but we wanted to own something. And so we got the duplex. The monthly note was affordable. We both had professional jobs. We were just young. And so, entry level jobs didn't make a lot of money, but we were able to afford that mortgage. And we knew that within a year we would save up more money and we would sell that house.
Is there a reason why, since you guys had given yourself the year timeline that you didn't just rent? Because that's a conversation that Randy and I get a lot. Like, I'll just rent for a year and then I'll buy. Like, what? I guess what would why buy though if you can't buy what you want and the plan is like we're only going to do this for a year until we can do something else. Why did you guys decide to buy versus rent?
It was we were already renting. Each of us had, we were already renting, and then we just decided that we wanted to buy. I don't think it was a lot of uh, thought that went into it. I think during that time, all of our friends were buying. It was just one of those things that young people do. It's like, hey, everybody's buying a house, let's buy one. And it wasn't anything more complicated than that. We didn't put a lot of thought into that. We didn't know that we weren't going to be able to get our dream home. We didn't know any of that. But once we got into it, we just decided to get what we could get, stay there for a year, and then sell it and get the house that we wanted.
Mm-hmm.
I think a quote that I keep at the forefront of my mind is most people only need to make 4 to 5 great decisions in their life,
Mm,
by Warren Buffett. Whether your place
I
good or
respect it.
great, but it's like
Mm-hmm.
we like to say, I'm gonna go do this, I'm gonna go do this, I'm gonna go do that. And then what if you just said, well, what if like 75% of things you said you were going to do weren't really all that important as you made it
Mm-hmm.
out to be?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But you just need to make 4 to 5 good decisions
Yeah. Yeah.
throughout your lifetime.
And sometimes, what you think is a good decision may not be.
At the time, yeah.
I can tell you that we were a little concerned whether we would be able to sell a house with interest rate, but we didn't know that people would just refinance it and get their own interest rate.
Hmm.
But those are the things that kept us up at night. It's like, oh yeah, we're in this, house with this interest rate. We, at that time, we didn't understand, the financing and getting their own mortgage and changing all of that. But because you're not going to know everything.
Mm-hmm.
You're just not going to know everything, but you do the best that you can. And I think that my point is to, um, you know, as you're walking through this thing called life, doing the things that aren't, what I'm trying to say, like, I don't want to say, I'm not saying that people have to be perfect angels. What I'm saying is that don't get yourself into trouble just because the system is unfair. I
Hmm.
mean, if you think the educational system is unfair, it doesn't mean you're not going to educate your children. If you think that the criminal justice system is not fair, it doesn't mean that you're going to go into jail to prove it. So
Right.
if you think
Right.
that the federal government collection way of collecting money is unfair, don't protest that on your personal tax return. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. Definitely.
Figure out a way, figure out another way to do it,
Hmm.
but don't put yourself in jeopardy because something is unfair. I don't necessarily agree with most of it, but I do this work so that I can help small businesses and individuals navigate the system. But it's very similar.
Mm-hmm.
As a system, it's very similar to the criminal justice system. Once you're in it, it's very difficult to get out.
Yeah. Uh-huh. So I guess what would you encourage or what's some advice that you would give on just Randy, you're talking about you only need to make 4 to 5 decisions in your life. How have you navigated making decisions? And you said not all of them are going to be great. Not all the decisions are going to be the right decisions. But just looking back, what have you learned about making a decision?
Honestly, I really try to make the decision that's best for me, and that's a struggle. I mean, you see what other people are doing and you want to do those things. They're taking these trips, or they're
Hmm.
buying bigger homes, or they have a nicer car. And some decisions are easy, but some of them you kind of want those things. But I really try to focus on what is it that I need.
Mm-hmm.
What is it that's going to make me happy, as opposed to what is fashionable right now, or what do my friends have, and things. Because I think that the things that you actually want will make you happier than the things that someone else has. and
Right.
and that's the whole coveting thing, right? Thou shalt not covet. But yeah.
Focus on what
Oh,
you have going
Hmm.
on. Where can
Hmm.
people find you at?
I am located in Galveston. That was
Hmm.
a decision I made I wanted to retire in a bungalow.
Hmm.
So I bought a little bungalow in Galveston. My office is located in downtown Galveston on Market Street, 2121 Market. But as a result of COVID, I am virtual. I have a 100% virtual practice also, so you can come in
Love
the
it.
office, or you can we can do everything virtually. So yeah, my number is 713-635-9630, or you can email us at info@societyofwealth.com.
Awesome.
Love it.
And if they want to find you on
Love it.
social media, are you on social media, or
I
how can they
am.
connect with you there?
I am Jacqueline Knows Taxes on
Ooh.
Facebook.
Okay. Got
And
it.
Y'all,
I also believe that's my LinkedIn name too.
Got in early. That's a nice. That's a good name. That's a good
Thanks.
name.
find her on Facebook. So, well, we definitely appreciate the conversation. We thank you so much for coming out. It's been an honor. Thank you so much just for your wisdom. Of course, we want you guys to like, subscribe, and share this with someone you know. Be sure that if you have questions about IRS representation, anything tax related, that you reach out to Jacqueline Muhammad of Society of Wealth. And we appreciate your time and attention.
Thank you.
Let's get it.